It's like,
I'm so
like
far
early
below
for this.
shame. I'm so far below shame. There's no way you could do that.
Right when Rick turns his Zoom call on, it's instant making fun. It was a hit last night, though. That was fun. We definitely took over the YPN event.
Good.
Yeah. Rick, I'm going to make you co-host, okay?
I knew that.
Perfect.
That's so exciting, Rick.
I can mute Steve that way.
Thanks for accepting the position.
Rick's like, sorry, Steve, can't hear you.
For the record, Peter muted you.
Now he can't see me, which is even better than not being able to hear me.
Mary Beth, are you getting tired yet?
Dude, I'm telling you, like running around like a crazy person.
You keep up with a kid that age. I can't do it. How old is Jaden now?
10.
10. I was going to say 12. Wow.
Yeah, 10. She wants to be a judge, so I'm hoping she'll go to college in San Diego. I think it's pretty cool that I think at 7 years old, she knew she wanted to be a judge.
There's an awful lot of people on this call that are judges every single day.
See, that's why I get nervous on the Zoom calls, because of that.
Yep.
Mary Beth's so judgy.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh my gosh. That is absolutely the opposite.
I think Rick just muted me.
I'm just trying to save yourself from yourself, bud.
Somebody better. Chuck, how much have you missed us?
I have missed you immensely, specifically you.
Thank you.
I know.
You know how many times I text you. Where are you?
I'm here. I've been on hiatus, on sabbatical, but I'm back, and I'm excited.
Welcome.
For those of us who worship Chuck,
Oh, stop it.
it's been hard.
Steve. Oh, man.
Steve and I have held hands on Fridays and just prayed for you to be back.
I will tell you guys, though, this book, The Richest Man of Babylon, oof, it's a good one, guys. Have anybody on this call read it? Have you read it before, Mary Beth? Steve?
Did Greg write it? If Greg wrote it, pretend I read it.
Well, he would have had to write it back in 1926. He does look like he probably was around, but I'm not 100% sure. But no, it's a
What
good
is the
one.
name of the book?
The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And it's kind of like... What's that?
Did you just say it looked like I was around for 1926?
No, I was actually... Well, maybe. No, I was talking about something else. But no, this was written back in the times of like How to Win Friends and Influence People, all when they had that big boom of all those like amazing books in, like between like 1910 and 1930. So this book is still a beast, even exactly 96 years later. You'll like it, I promise. If you don't, well, blame the author.
It's very good.
Oh, you know it, Juan?
Oh, yes. I read it in Spanish, and then I put an audiobook. English is not my first language, and when I read it in English, I put it in an audiobook that I understand a lot better.
I love it. Great. And then my texting program didn't go out this morning, so I actually text 96 people individually this morning from our company to try to get them on. So we should have a pretty good little group on today. But it happens.
That's called desperation, isn't it?
Well, I built it up. We had our awards banquet and kickoff breakfast yesterday and all that stuff, and so I built it up, and then I got a bunch of people texting me, "Where's the link?" I'm like, "Oh well." But all good. All good.
Rick's so cocky with his 200 plus fans every Tuesday.
Rick, you go, boy. I love it.
Hey, it's not me, it's Jose.
They do love those broker calls, huh? All right.
Chuck, where's Trevor going?
He's still deciding. So, but I walked up yesterday and I heard him, and they're like, "So you're gonna go to Pepperdine Law? What are you gonna do?" And he goes, and he won't tell me. But I heard him whispering to one of our agents. He's like, "It's looking like USD." So he's gonna go to University of San Diego probably. So for law school. So that's super fun.
Following in his dad's footsteps.
That might have something to do with it. But no, he's pretty excited. But we're gonna go tour the campus and do all that sort of stuff. But it's fun. They gave him 162 grand academic. So I was like, yes. No,
wow, that's freaking cool.
I know, I was stoked, man. All right, so what do you guys think? Can we get rolling? You guys ready? Cool? All right, just because there's a bunch of stuff, and then, Steve Games, anybody on this call that wants to jump in, I really encourage you to do so because I love talking about this. My absolute favorite thing to talk about, other than myself, is money and passive income, creating assets, income streams, all of those sorts of things. So The Richest Man in Babylon, which was written by George Clason in 1926, was one of the big first really powerful financial aid books for society in general. And it's a really great story that follows along with the things that are applicable today for all of us to make sure that we are not living on dog food when we're 75 years old. So I wanted to just jump in on it right out of the gate and just give you a little bit of a background. So The Richest Man in Babylon is set, obviously thousands of years ago, and it is about a gentleman named Bansir, and Bansir is a chariot builder. And back in the day, he was building chariots, and that's what he did for a living. And one day he was building a chariot, and he finally just decided to take a break, so he goes over and he sits on the wall. And as he's sitting on the wall, thinking about getting back to his chariot, a buddy comes over, and the buddy says, "Hey, can I borrow 2 shekels?" And this is his best friend who's a musician. And he goes, "I don't even have 2 shekels to loan someone." And then he said, "Well, what do you mean you don't have it? You're the best chariot builder in all of Babylon." He goes, "This is the richest city in the world right now." He goes, "Why can you not afford 2 shekels?" And he goes, "Well, why don't you have 2 shekels? You're one of the best musicians in all of Babylon. Why don't you have it?" And he's like, "Well, I don't have it either." He goes, so they started coming to the conclusion of talking about things that I think a lot of us probably talk about with our friends, which is, why can't we have the same money that the rich people do? And why do I feel like I'm working every day, selling all these houses, doing all these loans with Point, doing all this great stuff, but I am not rich? And I wanted to ask you guys, and I'm going to ask you, Bob, honestly, just because you're here and I'm looking at you right now, do you drive around down in La Jolla? Do you drive around in Rancho Santa Fe? Do you drive around in these areas and wonder how the hell all these people have all this money and we don't? And they've got these beautiful houses on the beach, and it's just like, it's not 1, it's not 100, it's not 1,000, it's tens of thousands all up and down the coast, homes that are worth well over millions and millions of dollars. Like, is it just me? Or do you guys wonder, like, what am I doing wrong here? What's the problem? So that being the case, that's the real question that these two guys are discussing, is why are there so many rich and wealthy people in Babylon? And you can say it whether it's in San Diego or Temecula wine country or up in Malibu or on the Santa Monica coast. Yet I don't have that, and I'm just as smart and just as capable as all of these people. Did you ever do that, Bob? I mean, Rick, you guys doing the same thing where you're just wandering around going like, I don't understand. I'm a smart girl. I'm a smart guy. Like, why am I not living in some of these houses? And it really, that's the discussion that we're about ready to have with The Richest Man in Babylon. So this...
I haven't read the book, but I'm curious, does that include the perception of wealth? Because a lot of those people have a lot bigger debt sheets than I do.
I like that, Rick. I like that. And that is going to be a topic that we were going to discuss. So yes, okay. So that being the case, this gentleman, this Bansir and his friend, they have a friend named Arcad, and I'm sorry about the names, but they got a friend named Arcad, and Arcad went to school with them when they were young, and Arcad is now, you can see him going by in his golden chariots. He lives in the finest home in Babylon. And he is known as the richest man in all of Babylon. And when he drives by, he waves to Bansir, he waves to his friend, the musician, and he's always nice, he's always smiling, he's always friendly. And as he drives by in his chariot, the one guy looks over to the next guy and he says, man, that guy is so rich. He's got such a fat purse. And he says, well, a fat purse empties quickly if there is no golden stream to refill it. And Arcad has the money and the income that no matter how much he liberally spends, he still has the money that is coming back to constantly fill that purse. That's what one of the guys says to the other one. And he goes, that is why he is the richest man in Babylon. So right out of the gate, it's giving you a hint that obviously you may have money, but what are you spending it on? How is that working? So Banzer starts thinking, and he's like, you know what? We were friends with Arcad in school. Why don't we go talk to him and ask him what wise advice our friend would have so that we don't have to be these people in the grind and that we can try to become very rich men in Babylon. So, because he was weary, they're worried, they're tired, they're working their butts off. And the hardest part is, and I think this is a piece for all of us, everybody on this call, from Mary Beth to Janie, to Peter, to all of us, I mean, we are some of the best people in our trade. Would you guys agree that on this call, there are some of the best real estate agents in all of San Diego County and all of Riverside County? We've got people on here that are making $3, $4, $5, up to $1 million a year, yet they're not living that life. And so the question is, why is that? So when they went to speak with Arcad, and he sat down he did say, I will sit with you, and I am going to tell you the story of how I became this wealthy. And it says, you may be the best chariot builder, you may be the best musician, whatever, but it really doesn't matter, because just because I'm of great wealth because I have the knowledge, not because I have the money. And knowledge is worth more than money. And Arcad was generous in charities, generous with his family, generous with his companies, generous with people that work with him, and ever increasing wealth. And so it starts out and he says, okay, well, we were all once equal. And now we're not. So what advice do you have? And he says, well, I haven't worked any harder than you. This is the richest man saying this. I haven't worked any smarter than you in my craft. I'm not better. He was a spear maker, okay? He goes, so one's a spear maker. He goes, if you have not acquired more than bare existence in these years since we were kids, it's because you've either failed to learn the laws that govern the building of wealth, or else you're just not observing them. This is what he's telling them. You're not learning the laws that govern wealth. He said, so I am going to explain to you how wealth works. Now, let's just be honest, though. Wealth is also money. Wealth is power. This is the book. Wealth is a way you can ornate your home, how you can sail the distant seas, how you can feast on the delicacies of the far lands, how you can buy ornaments from gold workers, stone polishers. And basically, wealth can delight the senses and gratify the soul. This is what he's saying. So you have to figure out how to do this. And he said, okay, well, I decided that if I wanted to be wealthy, that I had to spend the time and study on what would be required. So he says, here's my story. He said, I was a scribe. Back in the day, he was a scribe for the city hall of Babylon. And as he was sitting there one day, a gentleman came in who was the richest man, not only in Babylon, but in the whole region, and he was a moneylender. And he came in and he said, I would like you to give me 2 copies of the 9th law. And Arcad said, well, I probably won't be able to get that done. And he said, well, I want it done in 2 days. This is the richest man in all of the valley, talking to Arcad, when he's just a kid working at the city hall. And he says, okay, I'll do the best I can. The guy returns 2 days later and he says, okay, well, do you have the scribes, do you have these ready for me? And he says, I don't. It's going to take me a couple more days. This wealthy man is really upset. And he says, I want it tomorrow morning. And Arcad the scribe says, I will give this to you and stay up all night and give this to you tomorrow morning if you share how you became the wealthiest man in all the land. He says, so if you come in the morning, you have to help me. So he said, deal, fine, I will do it. So he comes back the next morning. He has stayed up all night. He gives them the scribes, and he says, okay, you told me you were going to teach me to be wealthy. Let's do it. And he goes, okay, so here we go. Lesson number 1. He found this on the road to wealth, and he says, here it is. Here's line number 1. A part of all I earn is mine to keep. And he's like, well, what? And he goes, a part of all I earn is mine to keep. Now, this is the foundation of this entire book, and this is the foundation of wealth, guys. And I know some of this stuff is going to sound really basic, but even though it's basic and even though it's great, we're still not all doing it the way we should. So he says, when you are living your normal life, do you pay the garment maker, person that makes your clothes? He goes, yes. He goes, do you pay the saddle maker? He goes, yes. Do you pay for the things that you eat? He says, yes. And he goes, here is rule number one on becoming extremely, extremely wealthy and how we can all live in those houses in Malibu, live on a lake, live on the ocean, whatever it may want to be. And he says, number one, you have to keep at least 1/10 of everything that you earn off to the side. At least 1/10 of everything you earn off to the side. Now, everybody's heard this before. Of course, you need to be a saver, blah, 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 blah. Yes, you do, but this is going to lead to the next steps. There's 7 steps we're going to go over. So number one is pay yourself first. Every piece of gold that you save becomes a slave to work for you. So a part of what you earn is yours to keep. And the sooner that you plant that seed and start saving that 10%, the sooner your tree shall grow. He says, but often I'm tempted to take all my money and spend it on my life and do this and do that and have great things and all that. And he says, too bad. He says, you have to keep 10% of everything you learn. He said, I'm going to return in 12 months. When I get back in 12 months, I want to see that you've done and saved 10%. And by the way, guys, this is going to lead into an investment tool that I want to discuss with you guys, which is the defined benefit and self-employment pension plan. We're going to talk about that today. So the richest man in all of the area returns 12 months later, and he says, have you saved 10%? And Arcad says, yes, master, I have. And he said, okay, great. Now what have you done with the 10% that you saved? And he said, well, I gave it to the brickmaker because the brickmaker's traveling overseas to buy jewels from the Phoenicians. And then when he goes over there, he's going to come back. And when he comes back, we're going to take these jewel makers, which will be worth so much more here, and we're going to sell them to all the people of Babylon. We're going to set higher prices and divide the money. And the rich man, whose name is Algerman, says, you're a fool. He goes, why would you ask a brickmaker about jewels? Why, would you inquire about the stars from a bread maker? Or would you ask an astrologer to help you with clothing and tunics? He goes, you wouldn't. He says, rule number 2, only work with people that are experts in their crafts. Do not work with anyone. So if you're getting, here's a perfect example, guys. If you're getting stock advice from somebody that is not in the stock industry, stock business, you're blowing it. Okay, if you're getting it from your baker, the Danish baker down the street, or if people are getting real estate advice, we run into this all the time being real estate agents, if people are getting real estate advice from somebody that is not a real estate professional like we are, those people that just jump in and think they know everything, that's a huge problem. And obviously when the jewels did come back, the brickmaker basically received a bunch of worthless little pieces of glass. So he says, rule number 2, only work with people that are experts in the trash, in their craft. So 12 months later, so he leaves, and 12 months later he returns. This time he returns and he says, did you save your 10%? And he said, yes, I did save my 10%. And he said, and what did you do with that? And he said, I had great feasts of honey and fine wines and spice cake, and this time I bought an amazing tunic, and I just had a great time with it. And this became rule number 3. So the very wealthy man says to him, you do not eat the children of your savings. So if you have 10%, and you make money from that 10%, how is that going to work for you if you spend it? So rule number 3 is you do not eat the children of your savings. Right? So number 1, save 10%. From 2%, number 2, only work with professionals. And number 3, we do not eat the children of our savings. So whatever you do make on the savings that you create or the investments that you buy, which we're going to get into, you cannot spend the money from the return on those investments. Because if you do, you're eating the children of your investments and of your savings. And how is that going to work for you? And he says, you know what? This time I want you to rethink this. I'll be back in 2 years. So this time he comes back in 2 years. And he says, have you achieved your wealth yet? And he said, not yet all that I desired. And he goes, are you still taking the advice of brickmakers about the bricks, and he goes, I am taking advice from brickmakers, but only about brick making. And they give really good advice on that. And he says, I only take advice now from people that are completely competent in their own experiences of what they do for a living. And I'm sure you guys are guilty of this, that we talk to people sometimes that are not in the positions that we have respect for what they're doing, and we don't even realize it. We take advice from friends that maybe don't live where we want to live or don't have the stocks that you would like. We just have to be careful that we're only working with the most competent of people. So, and I think they are out there, and there's people on this call that can run circles around me. There's people on this call that can run circles around all of us in terms of what it comes from investing. You have to seek out and find those people. Because If you don't, you're getting advice from people that you should not be getting it from. And this is something I've always said to everybody from Coastal Alliance to Skyridge to West to whatever. If you guys are buying something, I'm no expert, but if you're buying rentals and looking for returns on things like that, call me. Call some of the people on this call that are doing that and say, this is what I'm making, this is my return, this is my net operating income, this is how much it's going to cost me. Because if you're getting advice from people that say like, oh, that's a great idea. And I hear this one all the time too, guys. I want to buy 5 rentals. I want to buy 5 rentals in the next 5 years. That's not the best goal because you're not looking at the return. It doesn't matter what you own. It matters what your return is on each one of those investments. And the only reason I'm saying that is because that's the lesson here on number 4 is only get advice from people that are experts in their craft on what you're trying to get involved in. So number 1, right, is keeping a peace of mind. Number 2, not getting advice from people that we don't know that don't know what they're talking about. Number 3, we don't eat our children. Right? And number 4, of course, and that leads on to the next one, which he says, have you achieved your wealth yet? He says, not yet. He says, but I am working with the experts. And that being the case, remember to make the proceeds of your 10% your slave, and you will get your children's children's children to work for you. And the other thing I want to say, this is a line from the book, is look at the aged. Look at the people that are much older than you, your parents, the people that are older. You will be one of them. Everybody on this call will be one of us, will be one of them. And if we're not counseling with those people that have put themselves where they want to be, we're going to be in trouble. So that's the next one. So the next one is seek the advice from those who deal in money. Let them save you from the errors and let them entrust your money. And what I mean is, like calling me, or if you have really expert real estate advice that you can call Karen Vargas. She's been there. You can call Bob. You can call Tom Wysocki. You can call the experts because they have been there and they have made the errors that you're about to make. And it's so funny. It almost surprises me, guys, sometimes that we make our own financial decisions on our own. And when there are people that can tell us exactly what to do and exactly how to do it. But we're making these decisions on our own when there's 9 billion people on this planet that have been here for thousands of years since Mesopotamia that know how to do this so much better than we do. So that's kind of one of the things that we gotta find those counselors, find those people that will help you with that you can go down and sit to lunch with and they can change your life. So the next one that I think is a big one, and I don't know how you're going to feel about this one, and anybody that wants to jump in on this next one, please do, because this one made me feel good, and I want you guys to think about this one. This is the next tool. A small return is a safe one, and is far more desirable than risk. Now, this is with your own personal investments. Now, in your business world, in businesses and other things, I know people are out there rolling the dice, and I know this goes against everybody who, and I've heard, and I think it was you, Steve Games, that basically had told me before, and I agree with this. You said to have the huge profits and to have an amazing financial windfall, it's going to take risk. You did say that, and I believe that. But on the other side, on our personal lives, a small return is a safe one and is far more desirable than risk in our personal lives. Now, I understand in business, rolling the dice and going for it. And Steve, dude, you're the king of that, man, and I got more respect than anybody on the planet than you on that. But I do think on a personal level, making small investments and making small returns is a good way to go. Any comments on that, Steve?
Thank you, Chuck.
Any comments on that? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's really, really clear that you can do some incredible things in business, but if I've made mistakes in my life, it was always overestimating what I should be able to earn on the 10% I was supposed to save.
Got it. And you know what? Hey,
absolutely no question.
And Steve's been around the block.
And putting that back in the pot of the high risk business part as well.
Right. That makes sense. And one of my mentors, Steve, and this is and unfortunately, he passed away last year, but he trained me like in everything that I've learned about loans and real estate and all that stuff. And before he died, one of the pieces of advice that he gave me was always protect your home. And here's what he meant. You can roll the dice in business. You can put big marketing dollars out into your business. You can buy leads. You can do YLOPO. You can go to Commissions Inc. You can invest in all types of business things. You can go lease offices. You can do whatever you do. But he always said, try to never put personal guarantees on anything you do and build your home life as strong as possible first, and then don't touch that. So whether it's paying off a home, whether it's buying investments, whatever it is, protect your life over here from the business risks that you're taking on the left side. And he said, and then that way, no matter what, if the market crashes, if things turn, if things happen, you've still got your conservative, powerful investments over here with low risk. So that's kind of one of the pieces that I got out of this. So as they were in Babylon back in this time, the king of Babylon returns from being at war. And when he returns, he comes to find that there's a big division in society. There's the extremely ultimate rich people over here, and then a masses of poor people that are never really getting ahead. And as he's trying to figure out why this is the case, he goes to the extremely rich man, Arcad, and he says, I need to figure out why you're so rich and all of these people are so poor when we live in such an amazing society here, like, you know, San Diego and Riverside and Temecula and all these areas that we all live in Long Beach and Arrowhead. And the king says, I want you to train the people. I'm going to give you 100 people, and I want you to start training people on how to be wealthy. So he goes, fine. He goes, I'll do it. You know, since you are the king, I will teach people how to fatten their purses and the steps that are leading to creating temples of wealth and how people can firmly plant their feet. So the first step, he says, he gets 100 people in front of him, and he says, the first step is to start fattening my purse, is what he says. So he goes to a farmer. There's all kinds of people in the audience, right? As he's training them on how to be wealthy. There's a farmer, and this is what I want you guys to think about right now. The farmer raises chickens. And so there's 10 eggs. And what's his number one theory, guys? 10% of everything that goes on he keeps. So 10 eggs a day, his chickens provide. So 10 eggs. So, but he keeps one, right? So he's got the other 9 to sell and live on and do all that sort of stuff. But what happens if all of you guys out here were in the egg business and you created 100 eggs a day from your chickens, but you put 10 over here? Of course they spoil, but we're not talking about that. So you got 90 to sell and then 10 over here. What happens on the next day, guys? You got 90 to sell, you put 10 over here. You got 90 to sell, you put 10 over here. What's happening to what you're building over on the right side by saving those 10 eggs every single day of those 100? That is the number one most important thing to start fattening your purse. And this is hard because we want to spend money. We want to have cool jackets. We want to have great shirts. We want to have those sweet glasses. We want to have the badass furniture. We want to have all that sort of stuff. But that's never going to get us to living on the coast in Malibu or down in La Jolla or in Rancho Santa Fe. We have to build it slowly and start by fattening your purse. So number one is fattening your purse. Number two is controlling thy expenditures. And we have to not confuse what we need with what we desire. And that's, I think, one of the things that we all do. We're confusing what we need with what we desire. You know, and I'll just tell you guys, I could probably go out and buy, and you guys are probably the same, I could go out and probably buy any car that I wanted to. But I don't know about you guys, but I kept my last truck for 11 years, my old Toyota Tundra, and I just bought a new one after 11 years. It's a nice truck. I took really good care of it. Warren Buffett kept his 1982 truck up until about 15 years ago. Do you guys know why? The guy's so rich, he's one of the richest people on the planet, but he was still driving his 1982 Ford pickup. And it's because he couldn't live with spending $50,000 or $60,000 that he knew he could make money on. And he was keeping more than 10%. So he just refused to make expenditures because it was affecting the amount of money that he was able to invest and get his return on. So we have to not confuse what's needed with the desires. So, and then budget your necessary expenses and do not touch your 10%. And so I wanted to lead this into talking a little bit about an investment tool that I think everybody on the call should be thinking about. And I'm going to just flip through. I know not everybody's got their cameras on. How many of you guys out there, just raise your hand if you do, how many of you guys out there have a self-employment pension? Just raise your hand if you have a self-employment pension. Okay, thank you. 1, 2. Okay, quite a few. Hey, you know what? I'm really proud of you guys. Alfonso, good job, dude. All of you guys. It really makes me happy to see that, because let me explain how a self-employment pension works. As a real estate agent, we have something that no one else has. We have, well, not no one, but we are our own businesses. We create our own income. We are basically an independent person. So by being an independent person and not being on W-2, right, with your own Schedule C and your own S Corp and all the stuff that you're doing, we can put aside, okay, a percentage of our income every year into a self-employment pension or defined benefit. So if I make $100,000 a year, I can put up to 25% in a retirement. It is so powerful. Everybody's like, oh, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If you guys aren't listening, I literally want to slap you because this is so important, all right? So if I make 100 grand, I can put aside 25%. So I can put $25,000 into a self-employment pension. If I make 200,000, I can put $50,000 because I can put 25%. Up to the rule this year, which is in 2022, you can put up to $61,000 aside into your self-employment pension. Now you don't have to do 25%. This book is suggesting 10. So if I make 100 grand and I put $10,000 over to the side, or 25,000, or however much you possibly can, now I've got this account sitting over to the side. Now, with a self-employment pension, I cannot touch that money. I cannot go buy myself a car. I can't go buy myself, some new shoes. I can't buy myself a jacket. I can't buy myself a studio. You can't do any of that stuff. But what you can do, you can invest in anything that has a return, but you cannot touch that return. So I could go buy a camera for $200 and loan it to Adam over here for $5 a month. I could go buy a lawnmower and give it to and sell it to my landscaper or lease it to my landscaper. I can buy a rental. I can give out loans to Mary Beth. I can do a promissory note. I can do a trust deed. I can buy classic cars. I can do anything I want as long as I'm not using that in my personal life. So for those of you guys that were not around, and for those of you that were, feel free to help me out with this, but do you guys remember the massive, massive, massive crash of 2008 through 2013? In 2011, I went in to my accountant and my income was dog shit. And I went into my CPA and I sat down and I gave her a copy of my taxes and all this sort of stuff, and I gave her a copy of my self-employment pension. And she said, Chuck, I probably have over 100 realtors that I work with. And she said, did you know that almost every realtor I work with cashed out their self-employment pension during these times? They cashed them out. Do you guys know anybody that cashed out their retirements? Because that is the kiss of death. And she said, I'm so proud of you because I refused to touch that. And that was my 10%. And that's my advice to you guys. So create that self-employment pension, put that money over there and forget you have it and never touch it. Any profits that you make from a self-employment pension, from your little retirement account as an independent contractor, has to go right back into that account. And you don't pay taxes on it. So I buy a $200 lawnmower. I loan it to Adam. Adam pays me $5 a month. That $5 goes into that account and I can never touch that money. So it's starting to compound and grow and compound, and you can't touch it, can't touch it, can't touch it till you're 62 years old. So that is what I mean by budget your necessary expenses, but make sure that you pay yourself first. And you do not have to put it in a savings account with after-tax money or whatever. You can stick it in a self-employment pension plan and you can earn whatever the return is in there that keeps coming back. Not a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is after-tax money. Okay, so what I mean by after-tax money is, so I get a paycheck, I pay all my taxes, I got 10 grand left, I'm going to take 5 grand, I'm going to stick it into a Roth IRA. Well, I already paid taxes on that money. A self-employment IRA, right, self-employment pension, is money that I basically am getting and contributing in there before I pay taxes on it. So it comes off my top tax bracket, which is another thing that excites me. Right? So Roth IRAs, you're using after-tax money. You don't have to pay taxes someday. A self-employment pension, you put that money in and you can't draw it out until you're 62, but it compounds. Now, if you're doing well, guys, and we've all done well this last year, you can exceed the 10%, right? You can go up to 15%, 20%, 25% if you have that extra money. But what do? We go buy stupid shit instead. Right? We go buy stuff that is not necessary but a desire. And hey, you have to live, and I understand that. I'm telling you to drive a 1982 truck. But I am saying that if you can contribute more than 10%, you should do it. So getting back to the story, it's not about the size of the purse. It's about the income he built up, that golden stream that continually flows into that purse, remember? And so here's a quick story. A child was born, and I did this, and I don't know if any of you guys did this. When a child was born, he took 10 gold pieces down to the lender. And the lender said, I'm going to give you this money. You're going to give me a return of 6%. My child can have it when he's 20. So 10 gold pieces he takes down to the lender. Because of that compound growing interest I was talking about without taxes and all that, when he returned it, it was 30.5 gold pieces in 20 years. So, and then when he was 50, it was 167 pieces. So if you can get a 6% return, obviously with inflation, we're not going to talk about that, but you're going to start creating massive, massive wealth by doing so. So, and we are all, the other thing I want to mention, guys, is, and this is what we talked about, is everyone is tempted by opportunities that seemingly make large, huge sums of money. We're all excited about this pie in the sky, and I'm going to do, and this is not a shot on anybody, but I'm going to do crypto, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. We're intrigued by larger earnings. But just remember, the penalty of risk is loss. The penalty of risk is loss. So make sure that whatever your investments are, don't be afraid, everybody out there, to be ultra conservative. Don't be afraid of that, because at least being ultra conservative, you will still have that money and it will still grow over time, as opposed to those big risks. And can you smash it out of the park once in a while? Absolutely. Am I all for that? Absolutely. Use that with your discretionary money, not with your 10%, not with your investments, not with your self-employment pension, right? Slowly build all that stuff up. Defined benefit plan, Pamela, yes, that's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. And you can control that money as well. So I just saw, this is a good question. Alan Larkin said, how do I prioritize putting money into a retirement account versus saving to buy properties? My personal opinion, Alan, is put that money in your retirement first. Put that money in your retirement first, because 62-year-old Alan will thank you, because you can start pulling that money out then. As opposed to, and remember, you're buying a rental for the long term anyway. Do I want to enhance my life and be able to make $300, $400, $500 a month off these rentals? Absolutely. But if you got this big, huge sum, and we're going to talk about how to make more money so that you can do both. But if you got this huge retirement account over to the side, you're going to be so stoked, guys, and you own rentals in it, and you have loans in it, and you have, you know, all kinds of different things in investments and stocks and all that. It's a lot of fun too to manage that stuff. So again, the penalty of risk is probable loss. Now make sure on any loan that the ability to repay. And this is the next piece. I apologize for jumping ahead. You get people calling you all the time that want to get a loan from you, maybe, or if you do start putting money together in your self-employment pension, you will get people that want to borrow money from you. And you have to look at them just as Point does and say, do they have the ability to repay? Do they have the reputation, the experience, the employment, all that to repay that money? And again, if you're looking at giving a loan to someone, anyone at all, call me or call one of the amazing people at Point or some of the friends that you know that are doing that, and get advice from those people on whether or not you should do it. Never loan money doesn't have a trust deed. If you're going to loan money to family and it's $5,000, stuff like that, and here's the other thing, I'm sure you guys would all agree with this. I don't loan money to family because I basically will tell them it's a loan, but if you give it to them, it's basically a gift, and you cannot have expectations of ever getting that back. Do you guys know what I mean? If you guys think they're going to pay you back, you're going to end up hating your family. So just give it with the assumption that you're never going to get it back, and if you do get it back, great, if you can't attach it to property. So one of the next principles is, and I know a lot of people, including Greg Reed, Mary Beth, would disagree with me on this because of just the nature of things, but make thy dwelling a profitable investment. There are people out there that believe that buying real estate and having a principal residence is a waste. That is not good for you. You can make more money by putting that somewhere else. And of course, everybody wants to raise your families in a house. You want a plot of ground where your children can play. You want a garden, but the more you pay towards a home every single month, the more you have the ability to eventually get that paid off. So this book says one of the major points is make thy dwelling a profitable investment. So the other one. So and here's what I want you guys to be thinking about. Plan investments that will endure safely for many years and be available when the time arrives. So we talked about that. Anybody out there have small kids or grandkids? Because I want to give you guys a quick little piece of advice. When my kids were born, I was trying to figure out what the safest investment we could possibly do was. And I bought a rental for them to pay for their college. Since then, I've done a few things. But back when I was super broke, I took $2,500, and that $2,500 I invested that in Apple stocks 18 years ago. $2,500. Since I have done that, I so far, which Peter was just asking, my son just graduated from college. We've pulled over $100,000 from that account. And I still have $68,000 left from the $2,500 in Apple stock that I made when my kids were born. Now, the reason that I did that was because, I didn't know if I was going to end up doing well or what or how it was going to go, but I said, you know what, they're born, I'm going to take this investment. So one piece of advice I would have for you guys now is maybe take a couple grand, stick it in an account for your kids, buy a couple stocks for your grandkids, for your nieces, for your nephews, whatever, and forget you own it, but something solid. So plan investments that will endure safely for many years, Microsoft, things like that, they're not going anywhere, and be available when the time arrives so that you're not broke. And again, things like buying a house for somebody, a rental, that is a long-term, endured, safe investment. A small loan of a sum of money, that increases on regular periods, that has been qualified. And all of us, men, women, everybody on this call, we need to be thinking about our mature years. Because have you looked in the mirror lately, everybody? The more we look in the mirror, I don't even know who the F I am anymore, because time is moving so fast, you don't even recognize yourself. And if you are not thinking down the road in 10 years, in 15 years, if you don't have, guys, if you do not have an investment that is going to pay out at a certain age when you want a retirement, I feel like we're missing the boat. And what I mean is, mine is 62. When I'm 62, I have a bunch of rentals paying off, my house should pay off, all kinds of different stuff. Now, I'm reevaluating that right now, but do you have a date that you want to retire? Do you have a level of income that you want this to be done at? Because if you're not thinking about those mature years, you're going to dump that on your kids or your nieces or your nephews or the state. So you have a responsibility of picking an age that you want to be done and making a certain amount of money and funding your 10% or however much you're putting to the side to make sure that you get to that. So ensure a future income. Hey, Bob, I'm gonna stop for a minute real quick. I'm going to ask you a question, Bob Olivier. Am I preaching too much? Do I need to calm this down and turn this into a thing where everybody can talk? Because I would love to get people's opinions on this stuff.
No, I think this is great stuff. It is very, very accurate, and I think it's pretty concise. But I think we'd like to hear from people, because there are some people who are very successful investors out there on this call and are doing a lot of the things you're talking about. So I'd love to hear from them.
Let's do it. Let me ask you this, guys. Who on this call has bought a rental in the last 2 years? Who on this call? Okay. So there, we got one right there, Veronica. Veronica, can you turn off your mic? I mean, turn on your mic. So, Veronica, people tell me that I'm crazy all the time because I bought 3 rentals in 2021. How can you pay those prices? How can you do this? How can you do that? Blah, 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 blah. You bought one. Why?
Because I would make more money on the rents and the money sitting in the bank. Okay,
so you made a long-term investment. And did you take a good look at how much your return was going to be? Like, do you know where you were at? Did you do some form of analysis? Like, how did you choose the rental you bought?
I'm in Bakersfield, so it's really affordable. So it was a condo at $74,000. It was a no-brainer.
Oh, God,
and then I got into a venture with another agent and did a flip, and we closed last month.
Awesome. So you got into doing a flip on a good deal, and you are starting to buy long-term rentals at the same time, right? Veronica, I'm proud of you. Good job. Who else out there has bought anything that they think might have been a great move over the last couple of years? Did anybody make any really long-term moves? Something that future you is going to thank you for.
I did, Chuck. My name is David Bryan. I'm with Coldwell Banker West in our Mount Helix office.
Awesome.
And I sold a rental property that I purchased 30 years ago and did a 1031 exchange into a brand new construction townhouse right in the middle of a city called Santee.
Okay.
And I was able to pay cash out of the money I made from that 30-year-old rental that had never cost me a dime.
I love it.
Because it had supported itself from day one. I had actually exchanged into it from a duplex I bought when I was 21 years old.
Nice. So, and the thing that excites me about what you're saying is, so you sold it after 30 years, so you had already depreciated also all of the value of that home, and then 1031 that thing into the next property, right?
Correct.
Damn, nice job. Well played. And what kind of return, what did you sell the property that you had for? And then what did you buy on the flip side? And what happened to the rents in between those two?
Okay. The property I sold for $750.
Okay.
I actually bought down a little bit and paid $640 for the brand new property. So I am going to have some boot to deal with. But the long term of it was that I had a worn out property, basically. And now I have a brand new one that is supporting itself completely because it's free and clear as I grow closer to retirement.
And what happened in your rents? What did you have the old one rented for? What do you have the new one rented for?
The old one rented for $26.50 a month. I just leased this one for $34.95.
Wow. So you cleared $100,000. You rolled this property into the next one and increased your rents by $900. So
Yes.
well done, well played, and now you have a great appreciating asset that is obviously when you have the older homes, they're a little bit tougher to handle. So well played on that. Did anyone else, by the way, Jessica Wells just asked, is it too late to set up a self-employment pension? No. You have until April 15th, till tax filing day, to actually create your self-employment for last year. So we still have 2 months left of this year that you can apply to last year. So if I made $100,000 last year, I can still fund up to 25% all the way up to April 15th. So I can create it now and go all the way up to April 15th. Now, talk to your accountant about that. But the kicker with that is,
Chuck?
yes, please.
I think there might be a little bit different for those of us who are actually incorporated. I believe it's March 15th on the corporate deadline tax day.
Thank you for clarifying that. So if you are incorporated March 15th, thank you for clarifying that. I'd hate to give somebody the wrong advice. And
Hey, Chuck.
yes, please.
Can you do that if you're over 62?
You can fund your retirement, Steve, up until 72 years old. And then not only can you only fund up till 72, but then they start forcing you to take that money. So, whereas, most people, because most people that have been savers and funded their self-employments and are 65, 7 years old, they don't even want that money because obviously they have the mindset that they're making so much money on their regular life that they don't need that money, but the government forces you to start taking that money. So, but I am curious, some other investments out there that people have made. Anyone else buy any property, any investment properties, anything that they've done over the last 2 years that they could share to help everybody else out here?
Yes, Chuck.
Yes.
This is Colleen.
Hi, Colleen.
My son last year was making $63 an hour at 22 years old. And I told him, I said, you better start saving for the tax man because you're going to owe a lot. And he's like, no, I get the most taxes because he's just a W employee of ours. And I said, no, you're going to be a different tax bracket. So I convinced him to purchase a home. There's a little small town called Pahrump, Nevada. He decided to let us pick it out. He put $10,000 down. It closed in September. He already made over $100,000 and I rented it out for him. And his girlfriend's like, let's just sell it. Let's sell it. So when she left, I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $10,000, put me on title, and you're not allowed to sell it.
Love it.
He says, that's extortion. He goes, that's extortion. I said, no, I didn't say you have to. I said, I'm offering this to you. I go, that's the power of negotiation.
Right.
So needless to say, he's been, dabbling in like investing and stuff. And he's like, okay, I'm going to keep it. And I told him, I said, there's no way that I ever see you buying a house brand new on a golf course under $300,000 at 2.6 interest rate.
I love it. Colleen?
So we ended up buying one, and now he's clearing over $400 a month on a $10,000 investment.
Colleen, well played, Mom. Great job. Honestly, you should be very proud of yourself on that. And this is something that I tell everybody, and everybody who's on this call, and I see we're losing a few because I know we're on time, but here's the thing I really want to make sure you guys know. How many of you wish you still owned the first home you ever bought? How about every frickin' one of you? Okay, so my advice to you is just like Colleen told her son, never sell anything. My boys brought their house at 19 and 20, one's in the Marines, all that sort of stuff, and they have already tried to sell their house, Colleen, because they bought it for $213 and right now they can get $345 and they've only owned it for, a year and a half. I'm never letting them sell that. I'm sorry, but it's just going to go up over time. It's just going to be more money, guys. So never sell anything. Colleen, well mommed. All right.
And
great.
I also told him this. I said, you know what? Because he dabbles in stocks. I said, remember this. You can't live in the stocks. You can always live in that home.
Correct. I love that. And spoken like a true realtor, by the way. Okay, so so who else on this call has made investments, helped their parents make investments, all that sort of stuff. And I'm going to get one more, and then I want to jump back into this before we head out because there's a couple more things I wanted to run by you. Anybody else have any good stories about things they've bought, loans they've done, investments they've rolled into stocks, anything that they can share with the class?
Hey, Chuck.
Yes.
This is Leo Hefner.
Hey, Leo.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
I've been buying houses out in the Midwest, specifically Indiana, and I found a little niche market out there where, we buy houses for $30,000, $50,000 and they rent for $800, $900 a month. And I've been doing that for a couple of years. And, that's been the risk is really low because at this point, we don't even have any debt on on any of those houses.
Nice.
So all just little cash flow machines, and most of them are Section 8. When you're talking about lower returns and lower risk, I mean, that really fits into that category. Very low risk, and the returns aren't what you're going to get out here, but they just keep churning.
One of my agents, Leo, and by the way, give me the warm and fuzzies with this. Thank you for sharing. One of my agents just bought a house in Buffalo. She paid $84,000. She has it rented out for $2,000 a month. She just bought a house in Mississippi. She paid $34,000, had to put $50,000 in it, and has that rented out for $1,800 a month. So around the country, there are amazing deals, right? And that's obviously what you're saying. So that's cool. But okay, let me just add one thing. Somebody said this earlier in one of the messages, and I want to share this with you guys because I think it's important. I don't have the money to put aside 10%. If I tried to put aside 10%, I'd be living on top ramen, blah, 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 blah. So that is a very typical line. How can I save money when I'm barely making it? Well, I think we all can, but I think this is important. And this goes for all you guys at Point. This goes for every real estate agent on this call, is the more interest you have in your work, the more concentration you have on your tasks of being a real estate agent or a lender, the more persistent your efforts, you get yourself to the point where your skills start to increase. And that's what I appreciate about everybody on this call. And for this particular person in the book, few men can carve more tablets than this person was. They have learned to produce scribes and tablets 6 times more effective than when they first started. So if you want to make more money to make sure that you can fund that and still have a life, you have to become an expert in your craft. And we know that, and that's why I think you guys are on these calls. And that's why you're learning the texting programs, and that's why you're asking for reviews, and that's why you're doing all those things, because as life goes on, our job, everybody on this call, is to become the best real estate agent we possibly can. To be an expert in all of the listing tools, the Moxies, the hit 'em ups, the digital business cards, all of those things, so that you can become more and more of an expert in your craft. Because as we become an expert realtor, an expert lender, we start to make more money. So you being on this call, you becoming an expert in saving and in tools and in rentals, as we get older, it becomes easier to make more money because we've become more effective. So the advice I would have for anybody is become more and more of an expert in your craft, and your income will increase to the point where you can more fund that percentage of your self-employment, or start buying rentals on your own. My advice to you would be, if you start making more money, fund your retirement more. Because I can tell you it's 25%. Every year since I was 23, I have funded my retirement. 25% of my income I have never missed. And that's in 27 years. So I have learned so much along that way. Yes?
If I could say too, thank you for this class. This has freaking been mind blowing for me. You're speaking right at me. I'll share with you guys real quick. In order to do what Chuck's saying, guys, we all got to begin by tracking our money first, right? So I'll drop in the chat right now my family personal budget that I do every month. It's an Excel sheet, super stupid, super simple, but it has definitely changed our lives. And I've been able to save over 20% of my income every single month for the past 8 years. And the amount of cash net worth that we've been able to accumulate has been just ridiculous, because we're investing that money for my wife and I. But if anybody needs any help, I dropped that sheet in there. It all starts with tracking your money. I got people in my branch, okay, people that are earning 18, 19, 20 bucks an hour because they're brand new with us, or, get into the business. They're saving, at least 20, 30, 40 bucks a month, because it all begins there. But it all starts really with tracking your money. So thank you so much for making this all top of mind for all of us, because it's super important. We're not all going to be young or with the energy to be working like this for the next 20, 30 years. And there has to be an exit strategy. And it all begins if we all start to track our money, how much money comes in, how much money comes out. And you're absolutely right, man. I want to buy a damn exotic car, but I'm not going to do it because I got to save more money. And when you become addicted to saving money and you see your money having babies, or your rentals having babies, you can pull money from one rental to buy the other one, you kind of become addicted to that because you know what your end game looks like. So thank you for this class. I've taken a lot of notes.
Hey, Alfonso, I appreciate that. And he is onto something. And I don't know how you guys are doing it, but I have a spreadsheet that I keep at my desk, and I review my net worth, how much I'm pulling in from my rentals, how much income I have in my checking account, what's in my savings account, what's in my retirement account, how much money I'm bringing in. I do it once a week. I have every single thing broken down, and I love that you do that, Alfonso, because it's what you're really doing, man, is you're keeping it top of mind. And you're focusing on it, because as we know, what we focus on grows. So well played. That's fabulous. Fabulous. Great job. And I have no doubt, man, I mean, you're going to be worth tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. There's just no doubt. So yes.
Thank you.
So let's keep rocking, right? And I know, Alfonso, and a lot of you guys on the call too, I know that you're constantly increasing your skills, whether you're in coaching, whether you're with CoreFact, whether you're, I mean, all these different things, you're investing back in yourself, Alfonso, and I think that's a lesson for everybody, dude. And we all are, right? When we go to an event, like, I don't want to go to Coldwell Banker Gen Blue. Why? You don't want to learn? You don't want to become an expert in your craft? You don't want to become the best badass ass agent you possibly can so that you can, have that life. So let me tell you this, guys. If you get a chance to go to some of these events, Coldwell Banker Gen Blues or whatever, yes, it's fun to party and hang out, but that's where you're going to get the good stuff. The events you go to and your coaching that, you're doing, Alfonso, how much money have those programs and that coaching made for you, dude? Honestly.
Honestly, millions.
Millions, right? But we don't go.
If you add up all your income that I've done over the last 8 years, it's 7-figure incomes. I mean, it's just ridiculous what it does to educate yourself and do invest. When I got into coaching, I called my wife from Florida saying, I'm doing this. And she's like, what are you doing? What? I'm like, I'm going to be paying coaching. She's like, how much is it? I'm like, $2,500 a month. She's like, what? She's like, our rent at the time was $1,800.
Right.
She's like, how are you going to do it? I was like, trust me, baby, we'll do it. And she just stood behind me, and here we are, So you definitely have to invest in yourself.
I love it. And that is everything. And that's the number one investment that Warren Buffett says to make. Invest in yourself. Number one. All right, so we're running out of time, but a couple last little things. There's a whole section in the book about loans and making sure that people have the capacity to earn all that stuff. But there's one thing I thought you guys would find interesting if you're doing personal loans. You guys are super stoked because you're surrounded by Point Mortgage. You've got fabulous mortgage reps that can help you. You could even ask them about personal loans that you want to do to other people. And they'll say, hey, you might want to look at this, this, and this. But there was a line in here that I thought was great. And when they were talking about once they get a little bit of cash together and they're going to do a loan, one thing that stuck out with me, because I've done lots of loans, I'm sure everybody out here has either had them or taken them. And if they're looking to do a loan, and this is the wealthy people in Babylon, they do not loan money for people's indiscretions. They do not loan money for people's cars, for their lives, for their furniture. They only loan money for things that are going to make that potential person that they're loaning that money to money. Does that make sense? So if you're loaning them money to buy a rental, if you're loaning them money to invest in a business, of course, you've got to make sure the equities and all that stuff is there, but don't loan it to somebody to go buy a car or to do something like that. That just stuck with me. Because gold wisely loaned, of course, will double its earnings. So anyways, just wanted to share that with you guys. It is what it is. So I'm gonna leave you with this before we head out here. And this is my favorite line from the book. To become rich, you have to think of money like a tree. Trees grow slowly from a seed, and they need water and light. And the 7 things that we just talked about are food for your tree, for your money tree. And the tree cannot grow without the hard work to bust through the soil, to climb towards the sun, and consistency. So set yourself out a logical plan. Start with that 10% fill in your purse, right? And try to go up from there. Stick to your financial plan. And if you do this, and if you work extremely hard, the money will accumulate surprisingly quickly. And that is the last thing that I wanted to tell you guys is trees grow slowly from a seed. So if you're not saving money, if you do not have a self-employment pension, if you do not have a defined benefit, if you do not have a place that you're putting money that you can't get to that you can grow, you're going to be broke forever, guys. It's just the way it is. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Peter, I don't know if you have anything you want to add. I know I babbled and went on and on and on. I just want to make sure that everybody's thinking about this because everybody's got a few bucks right now and this won't be forever. And future you, well, thank you. Anybody else got any comments before we bail out of here? Peter?
Hey, Chuck, quick question. If you got a lot of grandkids, is it feasible any longer to buy whole life insurance at just a cash number going in?
Man, I wish I could answer that question, man. That's where I would go to somebody who is a pro at that. Is anybody on the call really familiar with the best of the best when it comes to the life insurances and whole life and all that stuff? If you or have a family member it is, because I think we should hook Steve up with a pro, somebody who's the best at that, if there's anybody out there. Maybe text.
Yeah, there's usually, I mean, this is my opinion because I was in the insurance industry for a while. Is insurance is for insurance. It's typically not for a good savings vehicle. But if you are going to use it, you go with the variable life, which you could actually, instead of getting interest rate, you can actually invest the money in stocks and mutual funds and things like that. So that's usually better. But my opinion, always keep life insurance and then your investments separate. But,
okay, thanks, Bob.
Awesome, awesome. Anybody else have anything? And I love talking about this stuff. So one of the things, too, is I'm going to come on every month, and we're going to talk about different investments. We're going to have some CPAs on. We're going to talk about corporations. We're going to review books. We're going to do all kinds of stuff. So once a month, I'm going to be doing the Financial Freedom Fridays. So I just want to let you guys know I'm going to make sure we keep this in our heads. We keep talking about it. We keep thinking about it. We keep growing it. So anyway, so thank you guys for being on the call. Peter, anything you want to close out with, man, before we're done?
Man, you crushed it. Guys, everybody on the call, Chuck is very passionate about this. I don't know how many years ago it was, but he drove down to San Diego and he's like, I want to show you. You have to see this. And he sat down and he showed me his portfolio and how he built it. And it's magical stuff. So Chuck, you really know how to do what you're talking about. So guys, soak this up. This was great. Chuck, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Peter. Hey, thank you, guys.
That was great.
And we shall see you all next Friday. All right, guys.
Thank you, Chuck.
Take care.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Bye-bye.